Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers wanted to know my thoughts regarding a live stream which made allegations against director James Gunn and whether or not he is the right person to be running the DC Cinematic Universe. Now, in a live stream that was presented on June 18th, 2025, a YouTuber known as Skiiwalker Entertainment presented a live stream where they wanted to go into a deep dive inside of James Gunn's love for Superman by presenting the past of James Gunn as related to several disturbing alleged incidents that he was allegedly a part of on social media and in mainstream media. Now, during the live stream, they basically bring up one of James Gunn's first published books, which was called The Toy Collector, in the early part of the live stream, and they talk about this book that James Gunn wrote and got published in the year 2000, featuring a character named after James Gunn, who basically is a guy who's working at a hospital and is stealing drugs out of the hospital in order to be able to sell these drugs in order to get the money to be able to buy items for their toy collection. And as this story goes on, Skiiwalker Entertainment presents a page of the book that possibly could be alleged to be a sort of sexual deviancy with someone who is underage. And in this page, it basically is quite disturbing what is presented in this novel regarding this whole situation, regarding this interaction with an underage individual. Now, this is the first claim as related to making the argument as related to James Gunn not being the fit for running the DC Cinematic Universe, and basically makes it look like there's an issue as related to the optics of James Gunn being the head of DC Entertainment, as related to the DC Cinematic Universe and DC Studios, with this Against Superman movie basically being the launch point for the DC Cinematic Universe, and this being a family movie. This type of publication as related to the director's past is not an optical good look for DC and Warner Brothers Discovery for James Gunn to be participating, to have published this type of book. And this is what one of the arguments that Skiiwalker Entertainment wants to make as related to their case, that James Gunn wrote and published a book that basically featured this type of alleged activity inside of a novel. Now, I'm scratching my head about how this book got published, but a positive story that featured black characters like I tried to write here at the SJS Direct imprint can't get published by a mainstream publisher, but James Gunn was able to get this book published in the year 2000 as he was pursuing his film career, and basically got this book published without a problem. And basically this book has come and gone, but Skiiwalker Entertainment was able to dig up information on the Toy Collector, and this information on the Toy Collector is readily available on Goodreads and is also available on other platforms regarding this book. And this is what was discussed by Skiiwalker Entertainment, and that's spelled SKII Walker Entertainment, and you can check that out in their live stream as they talk about this book and this very disturbing passage. Now, as they're talking about this disturbing passage, they also talk about other parts of social media regarding statements James Gunn has allegedly made on places like blogs and social media. And as they talk about this, they also talk about a relationship that James Gunn allegedly has with individuals who are sexual deviants, such as a guy whose name is Jimmy Urine and Houston Huddleston, and they talk about this as related to this relationship with this individual who is a sexual deviant, as alleged, as related to their report, and talk about how how that relationship and how other information came out about James Gunn's past basically led to him winding up losing his position at Marvel Studios for a period from about 2016 to 2018 or so. This is where this allegation came out regarding James Gunn making some alleged, what many people called blue humor, that was presented on Twitter regarding jokes about underage individuals participating in inappropriate activities. Now, as this information came out, I remember when that came out back around about 2018 or so, a lot of Comicsgate YouTubers were basically talking about this whole situation, and as they talked about this whole situation, Marvel Studios realized how bad it was for its brand as related to its optics, and as they realized how bad it was for their brand, they basically wound up letting James Gunn go. Now, James Gunn was in the middle of the Guardians of the Galaxy series at the time and was getting ready to do the third Guardians movie. However, due to the scandal that went on, James Gunn was let go, and was let go because that was not optically looking good for Disney's brand to have a family brand be associated with an individual making inappropriate jokes about minors and presenting this on social media without a problem. And I just wonder, again, how did this guy get this job if he was known for writing this book back in 2000? That's the critical question I have to ask. But the answer to that question, I'm going to give you the answer to that question in a minute, because when it comes down to James Gunn, again, you're wondering how this guy basically, according to the allegations that were made by these guys at Skiiwalker Entertainment regarding the people that James Gunn associated with and the types of things that he's involved with, you have to wonder how this guy basically was put in charge of DC Studios and is the head of the DC Cinematic Universe when you look at the allegations that are presented and the optics as related to those allegations, he basically is an individual who should not have ever been presented as to this job, because he wouldn't be fit for this job based on the allegations that are presented by Skiiwalker Entertainment. I mean, optically, it's not a good look to have a person going out here and working on a brand like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the DC Cinematic Universe, because these are supposed to be family brands. They're supposed to be targeted towards children, and they're supposed to be targeted towards children. And you don't think you would want somebody, again, making jokes about participating in inappropriate activities with minors, again, working on that brand. But here we have this man working on this brand, and no one even thinking about talking about this man's past. However, they will sit there and talk about the past of different black entertainers, such as R. Kelly, such as Bill Cosby, and many other black entertainers like Diddy, but they remained silent about James Gunn, and he's directing one of the biggest movies in this year in Superman, and it's all not a problem, and it's not a problem for one reason, and that's going to answer that question that I proposed, because James Gunn basically is white, and he's got the complexion for protection. Now, when it comes to white supremacy, their one rule is that they're white and they say so. And even though James Gunn has a questionable past and a questionable background as related to this book, The Toy Collector, and the points presented in The Toy Collector, not to mention the post and he put on social media that were mentioned about 7-8 years ago, and the blogs that he allegedly wrote presenting all sorts of inappropriate things as related to things, the one thing that cancels out all of those alleged actions that are presented in actual records online is that white supremacy basically has one rule for white people. And again, when it comes down to a white person, they can go out here and have one of these jobs in a place like DC Studios because someone is white, somebody said so, and basically in the system of white supremacy, then a white man is wanted for a job, they're going to give him a job regardless of his background because he is white, and it doesn't matter what is going on as related to his background. He's a white man, and when it comes down to a white man, nobody really wants to talk about that white man's past. No, nobody wants to talk about that white man's past because they're white. They said so. They said he's right for the job. And in the system of white supremacy, being white triumphs everything. And with him being white, it doesn't matter about James Gunn's past. No, somebody white wanted him in this job, and they wanted him in this job because they wanted to go out here and make money. And again, it's not about the content of that man's character, it's all about the color of this white man's skin. And because they want that white man in that job, he's going to be put in that job, and the only qualification he has to have is being white. Again, that's the only qualification that he has to have. So that's why a guy like a James Gunn, even though there are very disturbing allegations presented in this live stream at Skiiwalker Entertainment, are being presented, is going to be in this job because white supremacy doesn't care about anything as related to morals, doesn't care about anything as related to values, and doesn't have any sort of integrity or character at all. That's what the guys at Skiiwalker Entertainment don't understand, but I understand because I understand the subtle politics transpiring around things as related to this entertainment industry, and I've been studying this entertainment industry for over 25 years. And again, when it comes down to those whites who run the business of Hollywood, there are a lot of very disturbing and again deviant individuals inside of this business, and many of those individuals basically wind up getting a pass in this system of white supremacy because of the rule of they're white and they say so. And since they're white and they say so, they don't care about anybody's past if they're white. Now, if that's a black person, it's a completely different set of rules. It's a completely different set of rules for a black person, especially a heterosexual, foundational black American person. Those rules are completely different, and you can go out here and think that, again, that there is no color except green, but Hollywood is extremely anti-black, and that's why we got this standard of things as related to when these black guys go out here and participate in sexual acts. There is somebody there out there looking to use that as a way to, again, as leverage to go out here and destroy that person's career and that person's legacy, like in the case of Bill Cosby. And again, what the racists really want to do is deflect from their own perverted deviancy and debauchery that they participated in. That's basically why they orchestrated the whole institution of the Me Too movement. They basically wanted to create the Me Too movement to go after black men and make black men the face of sexual predation. However, when it comes down to the entire Me Too movement, it basically backfired when Roger Ailes tried to buy off Gretchen Carlson for $20 million, and white women saw they could get a bigger payday from the white guys. However, in spite of all that, there was no Me Too for James Gunn. Again, no Me Too movement for James Gunn. But really, what Skiiwalker is presenting is really disturbing, is again, the whole optics of things. The whole optics, again, here you have a guy who's in charge of the DC cinematic universe, again, a family brand. Now, on the merits, he's, again, as related to the qualifications, he's good for that job, but optically, he's not the right guy. If this came out on his past about this toy collector book and these statements he put on social media, however, that was all conveniently buried as related to things because, again, the media arm of white supremacy, one of the things that they do all the time is go out here and tell stories, and what they do is omit details of a story to basically fit their narrative. And that's why James Gunn has basically been presented as this guy who is going to be the one who's going to be the savior of the DC brand of superhero movies, presented as the savior of DC's brand. And that's one of the reasons why the Skiiwalker Entertainment has an issue with James Gunn, is that basically he's been presented as the face to save DC, and because he has a real emotional connection to the Snyderverse, he basically believes that this guy is the right guy, is not the right guy to be having any love for Superman, but basically just has a love to go out here and basically make whatever type of movie he wants to make, and wants to take the DC's universe's vision from a vision that was dark and gritty under the Snyderverse to this new version. But as I see it, the Snyderverse really wasn't that great. And when it came down to James Gunn's version, I mean, the trailers are looking interesting, but it's still looking super mid, and possibly looking super mid because James Gunn, as I see it, basically is a one-trick pony. He's a one-trick pony who's used to doing the same type of story over and over again. And since he doesn't have much talent whatsoever, he basically, again, cannot make anything outside of this one type of movie, which is, again, like Guardians of the Galaxy. And basically it was shown to me with his whole, the poorly written Creature Commandos. So I'm not really expecting much from James Gunn, but optically he's not really looking like the right guy to basically be running the DC cinematic universe if these allegations and the evidence he's presenting are true. But the guys at Warner Brothers Discovery, basically they're desperate at this point. They're desperate for a win, and because they're a part of the media arm of white supremacy, they don't really care about James Gunn's past because they're focused on the future, because, again, they're white and they said so. And since they said so, they said he's the right guy to basically be running their business. And since he's the right guy for them, again, this is the media arm of white supremacy, they'll give a pass to a James Gunn. However, they won't go out here and give that same pass to a black person, but that's how things run in the media arm of white supremacy. Again, the media arm of white supremacy is anti-black, and that's what many black fans need to understand. They need to understand James Gunn basically is getting a pass for all of his statements as related to those online statements he made about debauchery and presented in that book. He's going to get that pass because he's white, and they say so, and because they want him there. Again, they'll look to give him a pass because they want to make a bunch of money. That pass won't be given to a black person like an R. Kelly. Now, the allegations as related to James Gunn are just as disturbing as R. Kelly, but R. Kelly is doing life in prison, but James Gunn, again, has not committed any crime that's on record at this point, but he's still allowed to have a job, even though, again, optically, it's not a good look. Again, not a good look if these reports are presented in mainstream media, but they will bury these talking points as related to things because this is their business. Again, the media is not about going out here and giving you actual entertainment. Like Professor Black Truth has said, it's all about mind control. And when it comes down to white people, they basically want to make you believe that every white person is good, even if they know it's not. Because a lot of, again, these tweets were dug up from 10 years ago in 2010 by social justice warriors in 2018, and James Gunn is still working. And again, still working, and again, still working because white supremacy wants him to work, even though these statements are disturbing. And again, the viewer wants me to talk about how this relates to a verse of the Bible, Matthew 18:6, where he says, who will hurt one of these children of God? Again, it'd be better for them to have a millstone put on their neck and drowned in the depths of the sea. Well, what would happen to a guy like James Gunn, again, is we have to leave him in the hands of God. He may think he has the complexion for protection as related to the institution of white supremacy. However, when it comes down to God, again, vengeance is his, and usually that's where these white supremacists basically reap what they sow, later than what they sow, greater than what they sow, and they wind up paying the price for all of the evil things that they do. And that's where we start to see them again eventually wind up paying the cost for all that they have done. That's why we have to leave them in the hands of God, because we know that their justice system isn't very just, because this man should not be working in entertainment, working on products that are made for children, as related to the evidence presented by Skiiwalker Entertainment. I mean, some people back in the day, like the Comicsgate people, would dismiss it as blue humor, but I never found it to be funny. I mean, I don't find jokes talking about children being presented in an inappropriate fashion to be funny at all. And I'm a comedy writer, but I know where the line is as related to funny and tasteful. No, these type of jokes are about, again, what beta males participate in as related to their sexual deviancy, and it's about power and control and humiliating people. I mean, it's very cruel to do, but this whole thing is a bad situation. But it just shows me how evil people are when there's money on the table, how evil people can be when there's money on the table. I mean, Warner Brothers Discovery, basically desperate for their survival, again, making a compromise with the devil, making a compromise similar to what I present in my novel, A Temptation of John Haynes, on the back, where I talk about how death kills the flesh and compromise kills the soul. And it's looking to me like those guys, ironically, who make superheroes are basically compromised behind the scenes, because they've gotten with a guy like James Gunn, as Skiiwalker Entertainment has presented, gotten with a guy and made a deal with the devil that basically shows me that when it comes to superhero movies, it shows me nothing has changed about Hollywood. Now, when I look at Hollywood, again, it's like a hot dog factory, where when you find out how these hot dogs are made, it makes you so sick to your stomach, you never want to eat another hot dog again. And basically, that's one of the reasons why I want nothing to do with Hollywood at this point. I want nothing to do with Hollywood, because I found, as someone who has studied the entertainment industry, I know how unethical the folks are in this entertainment industry are, and they're so unethical. They basically go out here and will go and find a guy like this to basically work on children's products. And this was shown in the documentary regarding the Nickelodeon situation. I mean, with the guy, I forget what his name is, but the whole Nickelodeon situation, and again, shows me why no normal person who's healthy wants anything to do with Hollywood. No, Hollywood basically is a place filled with a lot of guys like this, and many people will compromise their integrity and again look the other way and allow these people to work, because they serve mammon more than God. And since they are making friends with mammon, they've compromised their souls, and again compromised their souls because they want to continue working in this business. But in order to work in this business, I just can't do it. I mean, my soul means more to me, and I just can't hurt somebody else or look the other way when somebody is made to suffer. No, I can't look the other way as related to things. And everything here presented to me, again, is showing me, again, that the whole institution of the media arm of white supremacy, again, isn't about entertainment. Again, they look to, again, control your mind, spin a story about James Gunn being this guy who's going to turn around the DC universe, but the things he's presented turn your stomach. And this guy, again, if as related to what's presented, shouldn't even be working in children's entertainment again. But it just shows me how twisted Hollywood is, and I've always known Hollywood to be twisted. Again, studied this business for over 25 years, and again, the sad part is that so many people will look the other way as related to this and still want to see that Superman movie, will still want to see a Superman movie as related to things, but will look the other way as related to the person making the movies, because all they want to do is be entertained, but don't understand that, again, this is all part of the institution of white supremacy. The institution of white supremacy is filled with lots of people who, again, want to present talking points regarding things, and again, will spin a story about a white person who's just evil and completely immoral, because they want to, again, continue making money. And that's what the guys at Skiiwalker Entertainment, they're just thinking, oh, this is one thing, but this is just white supremacy going on with business as usual. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can drop a donation for a minimum of $15 to the PayPal and the Cash App, and if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find that other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers. Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.